I had gotten to know your website just through all of the signs that I'd run into when I was cycling in Western Wake County that all said "Stop Carry," and I started, what the heck is Stop Carry? Tell me a little bit about how you got involved in Stop NC Annexation and the issue of property rights.
Well, the neighborhood I live in here, I moved in here in 1997, bought the house, and then in 2001 suddenly got a notice that the town of Cary was going to annex this entire neighborhood into the town of Cary. No questions asked. It's not, would you like to? It's, you're going to. And the neighborhood got pretty upset about it and organized, and I started researching what was going on with land use planning, because it didn't make sense to me, not financially, I could not see the sense of them trying to do this. And so I started researching on the internet and saw what was going on with land use planning, saw why they were doing this in the total picture, did not like what I was seeing. So I felt like it was very important to try to change the state laws in North Carolina that allow cities to forcibly annex, give the people who are being asked to be part of the city a voice.
Sure.
So it's an equal, it's at least somewhat more equal when you're sitting down at that negotiating table. And
so when we look around, I mean, this is a gorgeous backyard. There's beautiful trees. It's clearly been here a while. How have you guys survived? You've got running water. So I mean, what is the city purporting to offer you, and how is the neighborhood working right now?
The neighborhood is working just fine, and this neighborhood is either private. Each home is on either a private well or it's on a community well, and all the homes are on individual septic tanks. It's a neighborhood of retired professionals, mostly a lot of IBM professionals. They're on fixed incomes. They're very intelligent. They know how to take care of their own infrastructure. We're doing just fine.
Sure.
And the town came in, and in their public statements about why they needed to do this was that everyone in the neighborhood was on septic tanks. They were going to bring in municipal water and sewer. They made that sound like that was a superior option for us to be on government-supplied water and sewer. But it didn't make sense to me because of the environmental sensitivity of all the streams and creeks that run through this neighborhood and go into Umstead State Park and feed recreational lakes. But it couldn't seem to make that argument stick with the government officials. They kept saying that this was inferior. But I came back and I said, why are you forcing people who are perfectly willing to support private businesses, the private sector, and they want less from government, and you're forcing them to accept more from government? I have looked into it, and we had a case that came out of that, that really showed. I went to the Environmental Protection Agency website because I was looking for the evidence of why they thought municipal water and sewer was better. And I'm chronicling all of the municipal sewer overflows that are hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of gallons of effluent and raw sewage that's going into our creeks and streams. And I said, how can you compare that to one temporarily dysfunctional septic system that can be repaired?
Right.
And and I found on the EPA website that the Environmental Protection Agency actually recommends package on-site systems for environmentally sensitive areas. Then a couple of years ago, there's a newspaper article about Raleigh's municipal water sewage system. There was an undetected sewer overflow that was dumping 30,000 gallons of raw sewage a day, that it was undetected, into Crabtree Creek. As soon as they found out about it, they went and tried to clean up the creek, and they shut down nearly every recreational lake in Umstead Park because of the high bacteria levels. They left one lake open. It was Reedy Lake. Reedy Lake is supplied by all the streams that come through this neighborhood. So the rhetoric didn't match the facts
Sure.
on why they thought they should have this authority to forcibly annex people.
So it seems then that there's a pretty good environmental argument that says what you're doing is actually the right thing to do.
Yes.
If one would think that if, I suppose, you then followed the money and started to ask them
Follow the
questions.
money. I thought the Sierra Club should be real upset about the fact that because they would bring in municipal water and sewer, they would have to put the sewer main right down the larger stream in this neighborhood because it's the lowest point, which meant that even though the head of the guy that was the head of the Department of Water Quality came to my house and stood on this deck and looked down there, and I said, I had thought about building a gazebo down there near the stream. He said, not without asking me first. Because there's a 30-foot riparian buffer rule that says I can't touch 30 feet of my property from that water's edge. But the town can come in and because they want to bring in a sewer main, will go down the entire length of the creek, take out a 30-foot wide swath of trees in the riparian buffer.
Wow.
And put in a sewer main with lift pumps.
Wow.
That need constant power supply. We already have one lift pump here that during Hurricane Fran came dangerously close to just dumping sewage into the creek. We care about the creek. The individual property owners, the creeks are platted into our lots, and most everyone in this neighborhood that I have noticed care very much about that creek. So I called the Sierra Club to ask them, say, look this is what's happening. Oh well, things like that happen. It was like they were not going to get upset about it because it was a municipal government taking the action, and the Sierra Club had evidently bought into the urbanization land use planning theory of smart growth, which says we should all be under the control of the municipal government, where they're watching what they're planning our property, they're telling us what to do with it, they're telling us how we can do things with it. And they evidently, the Sierra Club felt that was more important than whether this individual stream was protected.
Sure. Well, it does seem ironic that in many cases folks think that government's the solution, when oftentimes government can actually cause some of these problems that we're trying to prevent.
Well, when I found out all these things, and I found out how the Environmental Defense Fund reacted to my requests that they look into this, and the Sierra Club, and I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I remember when people were talking about solar panels and solar hot water heat and all of this self-sustenance type of stuff. And in the that was in the height of the environmental movement, when it was a grassroots thing and people were taking responsibility. And as I looked at what was going on now, what it looked like to me was the grassroots environmental movement of individual responsibility and care, which naturally happens by studies have shown that naturally happens as people become more affluent, then they have the resources to care.
Sure.
What happened now was that environmental grassroots movement was hijacked. That's the way it felt to me. It was hijacked by big corporate environmentalism. And then I looked at these big environmental groups, and they had become very adept at using the courts and going to the government trough and getting the taxpayer revenue to keep themselves going, and it became a big money machine instead of a grassroots effort where people were actually doing the right thing for the environment. Then it became, when they got a hold of it, we had to have a top-down, one-size-fits-all land use plan. We had to have a top-down, one-size-fits-all environmental plan. And I'm going, that never works, because when that hits reality down here, it turns